Welcome to my iSax tip number 5. Now, hey, listen, I know that some of these tips are going to be perhaps not so interesting for some of you, because some of you were like, hey, Alistair, I already knew that. It's always worth watching these tips because very often there's a little something else that you might not have picked up, even if you think you knew how to do this particular tip. But you know, I also get quite a lot of questions on my social media channels asking me about how I do some of those things that perhaps some of us take for granted. So in the iSaxTip series, I want to make sure that all of those questions are answered really nice and clearly. Let's have a look at it. Okay, what we're going to do first is look at how we save a user scene. So let's make it clear that the Aerophone comes with lots and lots, 600 or more, preset scenes. Now these are sounds that you cannot spoil or delete from within the instrument. They are burned into the instrument. So you have no worries about messing around, editing a scene, experiment with it, and then if you want to, you need to save your scene, and that's exactly what we're going to look at here first. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously select a scene. So I'm using my scene up and down buttons, and yeah, let's go for this classic saw, okay? The next thing we might want to do is make some changes. Now, these changes could either be made here on the iPad app. So if I wanted to, I could maybe, well, let's say we'll do something like turn off the reverb and the delay. I could also go here into the internal settings and change the way that one of the controls actually works. Or we can make certain changes on the Aerophone itself. Here I'm in the scene volume setting. Let's assume that I wanted to save a version of this sound with a quieter volume. So I can just press menu and then use the left and right arrows to change that volume. I can try out my sound, make sure that I've got the settings just the way I want them to be, and then what I need to do is save the scene. Now, here's the easiest way to do this. We're going to first press and hold the menu key. Here's the menu key. I'm going to just press it down and hold it. Now what we're talking about here is saving a user sound. Remember I said we've got all those preset sounds? Well, we also have a huge bank or banks of user sounds. These are memory slots that we can use to save our own creations or our own edits in. So in this screen here, we want to select the left arrow, which takes us to the user sound memory. So I press the left arrow because it's the left arrow for the user scene. The next thing we're going to need to do is select where we want to save that user sound or scene. Now there are 12 different banks of user scenes. Each one of them will hold 50 sounds. So here's how we can choose where we're going to save that sound. I could just use the right and left arrows. Now you'll see at the moment it's telling me that we're in the user 01 bank, and this is the first sound in that bank. If I press my plus key, these positions have already got sounds in them. And I don't want to overwrite those because I've already saved those here. So what I could do is I could use my category dial down here. Now I know that, for instance, I don't have that many scenes saved out here in the user bank 11. You've probably got much less, far fewer scenes saved on your Aerophone. But here on bank 11, I have found that there's this place here. It's called init or initialized scene. And again, I can use my plus and minus keys here to select within that bank, but I know I've got nothing saved in there now. So I know that I'm not going to be erasing one of my previously edited sounds. So find your place where you want to save your sound to. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to press menu. Now we have the option, if we want to actually rename our sound. This can be a little bit fiddly on the Aerophone, but I'll show you how we're going to do it. So if I want to rename my sound, I can press yes on this right hand side. Now you'll see the letter C is highlighted there. And I can navigate to the letters I want to change by using my right and left arrows here. Let's say I wanted to make this classic saw 2 to define it from the other original preset sound. Now what I can do is I can use my up and down arrows to select through different characters here. I'm getting to the number 2. That's what I want to rename it. Now I've renamed my scene. The next thing we're going to do is press menu again, and it's going to ask us a question. It's saying, do you want to write this scene? Are you sure? And I'm going to say yes by pressing the plus key on the right hand side here, the right arrow. It says executing, complete. Now I have my sound saved. And we can do that for up to 600 sounds, so have fun editing your sounds. But what about when we want to recall those user sounds? How do we find them again? Before we look at the next step, I just want to remind you about the iSax.Academy. This is the home of online courses for the Roland Aerophone. We've got the Aerophone Basics course. This will teach you every note on the Aerophone, so even if you're a complete beginner, or maybe you got a bit rusty over a few years, this would be a good starting place. There's also a very similar course specifically for the Aerophone Mini. So if you bought one of those little Aerophone Minis, you'll need the Aerophone Mini course, because that one particularly deals with the fingering system, which is unique to the Aerophone Mini. And then, if you already know how to play all the notes on a saxophone or the Aerophone, well, you'll be needing the Advanced Aerophone course. Each one of these courses is more than 10 hours of video instruction with PDFs, downloadable backing tracks, tunes that you can learn to help you discover the new techniques that we talk about, and regular webinars, which are absolutely great fun, have been very, very successful. They are exclusive to iSax.Academy members. So please check out www.iSax.Academy. Okay, I managed to save a user scene, but how do I find it again? Now, just to explain to you, if you imagine all of our sounds on the Aerophone are in one big long list, and at the top of the list we have our 12 preset banks. Now, you'll already know how to get to those. You just rotate the category dial down here, and this is going through our different user banks of sounds. And if I went to the 12th bank, imagine being all that way down the list of 600 sounds, if I now use my arrow key and keep going on this arrow key, I do eventually get to the end of the presets, and I start stepping through the user sounds. So I could find my user sounds like that, but that's going to take me a long time. There's a better way. What we're going to do is press and hold the scene down arrow, and then we can rotate the scene category dial to select the user bank that we want. Remember, we've got 12 user banks, and each bank can store 50 user sounds. So if I hold down my scene down arrow and turn my category dial here, now you'll see I'm actually changing through my user banks. Now I just saved that sound, I think, into user 11. That's the bank 11. And now if I use my up arrow, I'm actually going to go up to, I think I saved it here, and there it is, my classic saw 2. I found my scene, nice and easy. And if I wanted to, I could then use my scene up and down to carry on scrolling through that user bank. So if I select another bank here to show you, I'm going to hold down my scene, down arrow. I'm going to go to this bank here. I've got a few more sounds. Now I'm in a user scene bank, and at this point, if I use my arrows up and down, I'm still going to be selecting sounds from within my user bank. If I want to switch back to the preset bank, well then all I need to do is just rotate this category dial without pressing these up and down arrows, and now I'm back into the preset sounds. So even as something as simple as selecting sounds perhaps has a little bit more intricacy than you might first have realized. Of course, we have another way of saving sounds. These are sounds that we call favorite sounds. That's coming up in the next iSax tip. Please make sure you give me a thumbs up for this video if you found it useful. Subscribe to the channel if you didn't already do so. See you in the next one.